your life.
Welcome. Find your seats. Sorry for the small delay. I wanted to orient my fashion to this headset. We're trying to get some overhead here, just because we'll put some numbers up, and we really don't want you to see the numbers anyway. So hopefully they won't come up. But as we kind of talk through some of these things, feel free to stop us, ask any questions. There's some veteran faces in here. There's maybe some new faces as well. So welcome to the 2022-2023 Wildcat season parent meeting. My name is Mark Woodard. I am the president of the club. And so let's start off, as we are a Christian homeschool basketball organization, with a prayer, and then we'll get into some material. Father, thank you for this evening and this opportunity for us to come together to talk about Wildcat business and be able to introduce the club to some of these families, and also just to go over some of the veterans' information, maybe to remind and also to redirect as to what you have for this club. And we just pray for a blessing on all these families and all these student athletes that we're going to have this year. And we just pray that we are guided and directed by your Spirit, as everything we pray is a glory unto you. We pray all this in Christ's name. Amen. Amen. So with this welcome, I want to kind of just introduce you to what we're about. We are a competitive Christian homeschool basketball club. Sometimes people say, well, which are you? Are you Christian or are you competitive? I say we're both. You can't tear those two things apart. Your daily walk with Christ is hopefully a moment-by-moment thought process and operation. And when we come together for basketball, I'd like to say we're Christian first, but you're going to spend more time in this club with basketball than you are doing devotions and probably talking of Christ and those type of things. But it's really as to what your mental attitude is. Now, this is a club that is really, it's about a 6-month club. So welcome to the cult, for the first time. So we run from formally October all the way till March is when our season will end. And we offer basketball from early ages, maybe 10U on the boys' side, 12U on the girls' side, all the way through high school. And so we will provide as much, I'll say, high talent level competition coaching, as well as fellowship with everyone. And also you will learn from these coaches. These coaches are, I'd say, spiritual leaders, and people want to help develop your young student athletes in the spiritual sense as well. Now, I've been around the club for about a decade plus, been on the board for maybe 10 years, and then I've been the president for the last 6. And so I've seen a lot of things, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of really, really great teams that were highly competitive. We won a national championship at the boys varsity level, and that is the ultimate mountain. That was in 2019. And there's other seasons where we just build character, right? And so it goes up and down, but we have a great time and we keep our mental attitudes about ourselves as well. So tonight what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce you to, the first one is going to be Paul, our varsity boys coach, and then some other people that are on the board will present some different information. But like I said, at any time in this process you have any questions, feel free just to stop us in the middle of it, and this can be, somewhat engaging as well. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Paul. Paul Settle. He graduated through the club as a player. Look him up on YouTube when he was about 14, 15. Or he says don't do that.
But it's
he was
so
an
much
outstanding
fun.
player himself in his own right. And then he was also an assistant coach on the boys' national title run in 2019. And then I think this has been your 3rd year as the head coach itself, or 4th technically, 19. And so I will introduce you to him, and he will kind of lay out the philosophy of the club and also kind of some of the structure of the game, tournaments, and the different things that will go on. So without further ado, Paul.
Oh, yeah.
Just pull it a little forward.
All right. Looks like I've got 5 minutes here, so I'm going to go ahead and start the timer so I can stay on it. All right, so we'll kind of go through some general details and then kind of my philosophy and the club's philosophy on things. So first and foremost, The amount of games, a lot of frequently asked questions. At the 18U level, we go around 40 games a season, 16U level around 30 games, 14U around 25, 12U 15 to 20, and 10U kind of the same. Now at all those levels, we have different tournaments that they attend. So I know that our younger levels go up north to Fort Wayne. They attend a tournament up there. Our varsity team, we play in a conference that consists of 8 teams.
Just pull it forward. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
All right.
It is multiple.
Cool. Consists of about 8 teams in that conference from Wisconsin, Illinois, Ohio, Michigan, Indiana. So a lot of good experience there. It's been called the toughest conference in homeschool basketball, and I think it's lived up to that. We also play in a state tournament. We have a regional Midwest tournament that we play in, and then we go out to nationals in March. The amount of practices per season or per kind of week is 3 per week. Now that depends. Do we have a game on one of those practice days? For varsity, it's usually Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. So if we have a game on Saturday, we will obviously won't have a practice. If we have a game on Tuesday, we won't have a practice that day. We've tried to limit the amount of events that happen during a week, whether it's a tournament, games, and practice. But as you get to kind of the varsity level, it really ramps up. And the reason is because we've added a lot more public schools to our schedule, right? So we have our normal homeschool schedule that we play with all of our tournaments, but then we also play teams like Culver Academy, Warren Central, Arsenal Tech, Gary 21st Century. We'll probably have Bloomington South on the schedule this year. So some really highly competitive teams, and that's what puts us over the 40 mark. Some points of emphasis at each level. Obviously, the younger levels, we want to emphasize fundamentals, right? The basics, right? How to pivot, good shot form, strong passing, right? And then as you rise up the ranks, you're going to get more kind of into our system. So, you know, we've got a lot of good coaches. I mean, Trey Ochin, who's one of my assistants, he coached as a head coach at Horizon Christian for years. His sons have gone off to play college basketball, so he's been around for a good long while. Josh Jones, he's been in our program for years. He's been a coach for over 20 plus years. And then Nathan Magnuson, who's our strength and conditioning coach. I'll talk about him a little later. Tryouts. So you come in, you register for your age level, you're going to play for that age level. All right, you're going to be on that team unless we get a wealth of kids and there's just not enough and we've got to do something like A-B team type thing. But tryouts wise, you can come and try it out for the next level up. And you'll talk about the structure and what that is pay wise and everything, but you will have the opportunity. So if you come in at the JV level, you will have the opportunity to try out for varsity. If you come at the junior high level, you'll have an opportunity to try out for JV as well. So that's kind of general information, how that all works. As far as philosophy goes, I'm just going to go through some common things that you're going to hear throughout the year. And we'll talk about it tonight. One of it's the Wildcat way. This is absolutely mandatory for anybody that has aspirations of playing varsity basketball, that you have this memorized. All right, it's a very important part of our culture. It's a very important part of what we do. All right, it's not focused on ourselves. It's focused on the team. It's focused on Christ. It's focused on others. So we'll talk about that a little later. One thing you'll hear us say, what's in our heart? It's conviction. You know, as we build young men and young women, we want them to be convicted about what they're doing in life. We don't want them to make decisions second guessing themselves. So conviction is a huge piece. Trust, having trust in one another as a team. We're not going to be able to, you know, what's in our heart? Conviction, what keeps us together? Trust. That's what can keep us together. All right, trust in our Creator, trust in one another. That's the only thing that's going to be able to get us through. Details. All right, what's our focus? Details, details, details. We don't, you know, get caught up in all of the, you know, big things. Don't be too small for the moment. Don't let the moment be too big for you. Focus on the details, one thing at a time. That's a huge focus for us as well. We say we do things His way, and you'll see that in the Wildcat way. It's not about us. It's about doing things His way. And then also for Him. We say that at the very end. We close with a for Him, because ultimately what we're trying to do here is for Him. It's not for ourselves. It's not for the accolades. It's not to be seen. It is for Him, ultimately. Another thing that we say is 4-0. And this means, so there's 4 factors within a basketball game that have been proven to win. I think throughout the history of the Wildcats, 98% of the time that we win these 4 factors, All right, we win basketball games. Okay, the first one is an effective field goal percentage. All right, this means that field goal percentage obviously is high, and that scale is corrected for 3-point field goals. The offensive rebounding percentage, we want to win offensive rebounds. Free throw rate, the number of free throws made per field goal attempt, and then also the turnover percentage. We want to have less turnovers, obviously, than our other team. So you'll hear us say in our huddle, let's go 4-0 for him, 1, 2, 3 for him. So that's what that means, and that's a possession by possession focus. All right, that again goes to details. All right, focus on the possession that is at hand. So what you're going to see is I want these guys, and I know Jill at the varsity girls side wants everybody to focus on, the little things, one thing at a time. All right, being patient in life, because we know once we get into our jobs, once we get into school, we got to prioritize, and we got to be patient, and we got to be understanding of the situation. We have conviction about what we do. We got to have trust in mentors and leaders around us to be able to help us and to trust to talk to. So all of these things are things that you're going to hear throughout the year and are very important. You also hear me and maybe your players hear about the holy trinity of defense, and that is jumping to the ball, keeping to a side, and then help drop recover. They'll be able to tell you more about what that means, but ask them about that occasionally. Off the court expectations, get your schoolwork done. I don't want schoolwork to ever be an excuse that I can't come to practice. That is their fault, right? And they'll know that, right? It is get your schoolwork done. I don't want that to be an excuse of why you are not here to practice, okay? Obviously, that's good priorities to have school first, but if you didn't get your work done, then we're not in a good situation there. Represent the Wildcats well off the court. Work on your skills. We don't want just our 3 practices a week to be the only time that you work on your skills. We have the hardest schedule in homeschool basketball. The hardest. We are playing some of the top teams in the state. All right, we can't compete with them with only 3 practices a week when they're practicing every single day for 2 hours.
Yeah.
All right, so working outside of practice is going to be important. Getting conditioned. With those 2.5-hour practices 3 times a week, I can't spend the whole time conditioning. So these guys have got to be out there conditioning themselves. And then make the most of our strength and explosion program that Coach Nate has developed. So Coach Nathan Magnuson, we played together with the Wildcats. And one thing let me say about the Wildcats, guys, it's such an awesome opportunity to have like-minded individuals at such a young age. I jumped into the homeschool world and found lifelong friends that, they've gone off and gotten married, had kids, and I've gotten to see them all throughout that, and they're my friends, and they're the only friends I'll probably have. So they're awesome people, and it's an awesome opportunity, just the tight-knit group that we have in the homeschool community and with the Wildcats. But Nate, he's done a fantastic job developing our strength and explosion program that, has taken some kids from, not great athletes, to be frank, to great athletes. And it's really amazing what they do when they dedicate themselves to it. So he's put that together, fully volunteered, put something together for each and every one of these kids to take advantage of it as much as possible. So with that, there's 5 things I ask of parents. Let the coaches coach, let the officials officiate, be encouragers, volunteer as much as you can. I know it's a lot to ask, but we are a volunteer club that, there's a lot to do. There's a limited amount of people. So volunteer as much as you can. We appreciate it greatly. And then push your kids to work in all of these things. So get them to workouts. Push them to do their own workouts and to know that they have to earn their time. Ultimately, what are we trying to accomplish? There's 4 things. Glorify God, and you'll see that in our Wildcat way, in victory and defeat. Be different. Be a different team. We're getting to go into public schools where we don't know if anybody knows Christ or not.
Yeah.
We don't know, but we want to be a different program. We want to have different players that represent Christ and show the light of Christ. Through our program, we want them to grow spiritually, physically, and mentally. All right? And then lastly, like Mark talked about, compete. All right? We've been given a tremendous opportunity to compete against some of the best. We've succeeded in the past, but as many alumni come through, they'll tell you what it took. And I tell the guys all the time, my friends, the guys before me, they didn't have the opportunities that they have now. So to make the most of it, let's compete, we've got the opportunity. Let's make the most of it. So hope that gives you kind of a little bit of background. I went 5 minutes over my 5-minute mark, so I'm sorry about that.
It's kind
But
of
I
standard
appreciate
for
you
the
guys
varsity
coming
coach
out.
to do
So
that.
thank you.
Thank you, sir. So you just tell me when I go here.
Yeah.
Good? Hey everyone, I'm Ethan Walker. The last few years I've coached the 10U program, but now I'm just serving on the board with Mark and the gang. So just here to talk a little bit about our practice and game facility situation just for the year. I know a lot of the new families will be kind of interested in terms of what our facilities are. So just briefly, just to go over those, we've got the Borello Center, which is in Garfield Park, so that's kind of a little bit closer to downtown, but it's easily accessible off of I-65 there. There's Indy Baptist Temple, which is off of Southport Road in 65. Victory Christian. To be quite honest, our younger levels didn't go there much. It's in Franklin, but outside of that, I'm not sure exactly where that is.
It's just off the freeway.
But it's off of
It's by
65
Carter
as
Lumber.
well, so
Yeah, Carter Lumber.
very good. And then
Huge
we are at
facility.
GCA North. This is where, in the event that we have some all levels type of games, this will likely be where we're at for some of those. In terms of where is my kid going to play, that'll depend on some of the where the coaches request to be. It'll be maybe be different for boys and girls a little bit. So all in all, you're going to hear from your coaches at some point. And then Jenny, she'll get into it a little bit more, but we have an event link. So that'll kind of be your calendar, and that'll kind of tell you where you need to be throughout the course of the week and months to come. So she'll get you a little bit more detail on that. In terms of our home games, we do charge admission. We do $5 for adult, $3 for seniors and students, and then you can get a $15 family pass if that's more convenient for you. The reason we do that really is to help us offset officiating costs, as well as the court rental itself. So that's kind of the reason for that. One of the things that we want to make sure we touch on as well is just when we're at these facilities, we just want to make sure we're being good stewards of what we've been afforded, that we're treating those facilities with respect. That's something, we'll have different guidelines that we'll receive from each of these places, and they'll tell us how we need to enter and what we need to do in terms of setup and cleanup. And that's where some of the volunteer stuff will come into play that Paul alluded to as well. So just making sure we're on top of that. When we get those guidelines, we'll make sure we share those as a club to the coaches and likely to anybody who's registered at that point. Couple points of emphasis. So these are actually more so mine than anybody else's, just that I've noticed in the last few years, is when you're leaving a facility, leave it the same way you entered it. One thing I've noticed a lot is there's trash, all sorts of things being left even around our benches or even in our fan and seating area. Just make sure that we're taking care of our own stuff and again leaving it in the same way that we entered. And then as it relates to like practices, we want to make sure that in some of these facilities, there's several practices going on throughout the course of the evening or what have you. If as parents and coaches, any other coaches that are in the room or listening, make sure that we're respectful of the team that is currently practicing, and that we try to keep all the other kids from shooting on goals that are adjacent. It's very distracting to the coaches and needless to say for the players as well, just as they're trying to listen to their coaches. So those are just a few items that I needed to cover, and then I guess I will turn it over to Jenny. Any questions on that, by the way?
pull it up towards the, there you go.
I'm just gonna try to.
Good.
The pad should go over your one area. There you go.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I am the secretary on the board, Jenny Walker. So you've been probably receiving a lot of emails from me. That's going to continue. I try to, I find that emails in small bites of information are better with one topic than just a mass amount of information in one email. Please read the emails. That's my plea to everybody. Please read all of the emails. I don't send them just because. So you'll be receiving a lot of pertinent information during the season, before the season. And some people had expressed that some of the emails go to spam or otherwise. So if you could add, I have the email listed on here, I believe. No, did I not? Okay, it's Indy Wildcats Media at gmail.com. So if you could add that to your contacts list, there's a higher probability that it'll go to your actual inbox. So if you could do that, and I don't know why I didn't put it on there. So anyways, our website is homeschoolwildcats.com. Most people are familiar with it from last year as being, that's where our calendar was. This is not going to be the case this year. Our calendar is not going to be on our website, although we will have, under each team, there will be a, basically a list schedule, but it will not, it'll just have dates and teams. It will not, and maybe times, but it will not have locations and all of that pertinent information under each. So this is what the list schedule looks like. It's just a list, but we won't have the actual calendar of all the teams on the actual website.
No practices.
Yeah, no practices will be listed on here. It will just be games. And I'm just going to mention Twitter and Instagram. A lot of times we will post things to all three: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. If you wanted to follow socially, that's where we post some things. The YouTube is Indy Wildcats is the main one, and that's where mostly varsity boys.
So
most
I can
boys.
talk about that later.
Okay.
If you want.
Shelly will talk about that.
'Cause
But
I'm just
anyway,
talking
so
about
our three channels are Indy Wildcats, Lady Wildcats, which will be all the girls' games, and then the Indy Junior Cats would be any games that,
Or 10U or 12U.
yeah, 10U, 12U.
Yeah.
And then I want to talk about EventLink. I'm trying to hustle so that we don't. Okay, so for the season, everybody will have to get on EventLink. That's where the calendar will be. So basically you go to the EventLink website and you register. I have sent instructions to anybody who was registered last year, and I will send out another round of instructions again to everybody once everybody is registered, probably a few different times, just so that everybody has the instructions. But once you get registered, you can get it on your phone, on an app, and see the calendar. You can filter it. Right now, I have all of the teams on here so that I can see it. But every team has its own color, and it just is all laid out like this. And on the calendar, on the app, it's very easy to see where your team is practicing, what time, and at a glance, you can see that. You can filter it out to just be your teams that are applicable to you and your children, or you can, if you want to go to all of the games or some of the other games, then you can just have them on here like I do and just be able to see. Anything in the dark blue is going to be an all club event. So for tonight, it's the parent info meeting and the board meeting, and then here we have the Battle at the Barillo 3v3 tournament that we are hosting. So if any of your children would like to attend that or play in that tournament, that is on September 3rd. That's just my little plug for that. So anyway, does anybody have any questions about EventLink if anybody's had a hard time getting on? Or...
Can you just tell about where you go to populate your calendar? Because I've had to answer that over the phone for people twice.
Okay.
So that might be helpful.
So you go to My Calendars and then you click, well, this is a little bit different because I'm in admin mode.
Yeah.
So I'll have to go to community. You can go to My Calendars and manage My Calendars, okay? So you can either select or deselect. Right now I have them all selected. So I deselected the ones that I don't want, and then I save, and then it took off the teams that I didn't want to see on there. So you have to go under My Calendars and go to Manage My Calendars. And that's how you can switch that. Anyway, we go, I will show you once we get into the season. These are just practices here. Once we get into the season, you will see games and practices. Away games are going to be kind of like with a little dash around the outside and a little bit more faded. Home games are going to be more opaque, so you can kind of see the difference for the girls' schedule here. That's what I have mostly on. This is the Crossroads Clash, so all teams will be at, well, most of the teams will be at the Crossroads Clash. But anyway, so that's a little bit different. The practices will be kind of brighter, and then the home games and away games will be look a little bit different. But it is very nice and nicely laid out, and the app is really easy to use, so I highly suggest you get it. Any other questions? No? Okay. I'll turn it over to Mark again. Yes, sir.
Now, two more topics I'll hit, and then we'll talk money. Everybody's waiting for that, right? So one thing is we are a volunteer club. And so when we run a game, for about a decade, this was our home court, right? So we had 3 beautiful courts, and so when we come in here and we had games, you know, to run a game, you obviously have to pay officials. You also have to pay your court costs. And then you have to run a game, you have to have somebody run the clock, you have to have somebody keep stats, you know, at the table. There's an official bookkeeper. And so there's a lot of things that go into just doing one game. And if you're like, ooh, I'd like to do some of that, but I have no idea how to run it, we can train you on running the clock. What we'll do is we'll throw you right into a varsity game at a tournament level. We'll ease you into 10 U boys in some rural offsite.
No, that's not on YouTube. But we can teach you that. We can teach you how to do the scorebook and all the different things that make an actual game day operation run with volunteers. Now, there's more than that as well. To keep, like Jenny, communication open, we try to have a liaison within each team that can kind of communicate maybe on a weekly basis. Hey team, this is what we have this week. We have these practices on these nights. We have this game. Make sure you hydrate and eat properly, that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of different volunteer positions. Now we usually have those up on our website where you can, when you register, then click a few things that you're interested in, and then we will hit you up for those things, right? So, and we really require everybody to do volunteering. So if you don't answer any of it, we'll fill you in where we need you, and then, it's not good. So, but it's enjoyable. What I find is I love to do the book right? And most people do not like to do any of that kind of stuff. I like to do the book because you keep engaged. You know what's going on in the game. You can fudge the numbers, especially if you're the home team. I mean, there's a lot of advantages to it, you know. So anyway, volunteer, very important. We have about usually 80 to 100 kids. We have 9 teams. And if you run through the numbers and the math that he gave as far as how many games, there is a lot going on in this club. And we also try to video live stream every game, and so any area of expertise that you think you may have that could help, and it could be as easy as show up here early and set up team benches, or clean up afterwards. So anything, we appreciate your help, and we will definitely look forward to it. Question? Yes, that's a good point. So how the board runs, there's 9 people on the board this year. And so how we set it up years ago is there's committees within the board. And so it makes sure everything gets done within the club, right? So as the president, I'm on the executive board, and then there's all these responsibilities, right? I got to make sure we have coaches, make sure we have facilities, that kind of stuff. Doesn't mean I'm doing it. It means I'm doing it or I'm delegating it. So within those committees, then things branch out into all kinds of other areas. So we make sure it gets covered, but the more people are willing to step up, then the less comes off the plate of the people at the top. And you get to know, like I say, the people, the game, you get to know everything when you're in basketball. If we're going to be together for 6 months, then we need to, help each other out and learn some of the ins and outs of this game. So it is a fun game. And so any other questions on volunteering? All right. One other area I want to hit before we talk numbers is, and Paul mentioned it, the Wildcat Way. If everybody has the sheet of paper in front of you, I think it's on the back and on the bottom or something, this Wildcat Way. Now, this was put together. We had a coach, Jeremy Bialek. He was the varsity coach for 18 years. And so he and his wife came up with this. And it's a nice little, I think, something that is, in my mind, it's just a mental attitude check as to, what are you thinking about when you're involved in basketball and in this club? And then years ago, when I first came around, he said, hey, can you be the chaplain? I'm a pastor. Jeremy was a pastor as well. And so I took each line and I put together pertinent passages for it and made like a couple of sheets, like a doctrinal study on each line that's put in there. I still have that if you want it, but the point is everything has something about what your student athlete should be focusing on when they're playing the game of basketball in a Christ-like environment, right? We're trying to combine those two. So if you can kind of read some of this with me, we are the Lord's, not our own, therefore we play his way. Of course, I think of Ephesians 1:13 and 14. If you believe, and you hear the gospel, then it says you are sealed by the Holy Spirit of promise, right? And there's all this information that goes that basically as a believer, you are now the slave and the doulos of Christ, and you are identified, you are his possession, right? And so that's what I think Jeremy was thinking of when he put that first line together, right? We are the Lord's, not our own, therefore we play his way. We commit to sacrifice individual desires and goals to joyfully serve the Lord through team basketball. My thought was Philippians 2-5, right? The ultimate humility of Christ himself for him to sacrifice. And so you can put all kinds of passages and concepts behind each of these stanzas. And it goes on, it says, to communicate with boldness and kindness on and off the court, to diligently guard against division, distraction, and discouragement. In the Christian way of life, we are called to be united in thought around the things of Scripture. We're not going to be united in things as far as colors, teams, that kind of stuff. That's all human viewpoint, right? We're to be united in the things of Christ. And so when we come together for basketball, we're also united in that sacrificial attitude to play for a team. Yes, you're an individual. You contribute, but what's best for the team? even me being part of this club for so long, even within a board of like-minded people, we have to make decisions. And do we make a decision, this would be best for my kid, or would this be best decision for the club as a whole, right? And so it's very hard for even tenured, mature, spiritually mature adults to get their mind around that stuff, right? And so that's what you do, that you tell your student athlete as an adult, but also as an adult yourself, think that way first and try to pass that down and promote that. So guard against division, distraction, and discouragement. To respect our God-given talents, authorities, teammates, and opponents. Good positive mental attitude towards your own coaches, toward the other players, toward, here's a difficult one, the referee when he missed a clear traveling violation by the other team. This is what happens. If you get worked up about the calls on the court, it's not going to go your way if you are vocal about it, right? We have, at our level, veteran people kicked out of our games. It's embarrassing. It's ridiculous. And me as the president, when I'm trying to schedule these games, there's been times where the next morning somebody from another school will call and say, cancel the games that we have for you that we've contracted the next 2 years or something, right? That is the worst feeling, right? Even if it's kind of that guy wasn't there and he got some hearsay from his own fans and on, we are to act collectively with a positive Christian attitude. Coaches, once in a while this happens as well, they start writing the refs. There's no benefit to it. The refs are not going to turn in your direction. As a matter of fact, you're going to drive them away. So whether it's stands, parents in the stands, coaches, we have all these conversations. We're all human. We're just like any other, ultimate team, let's say. We're not supposed to be. We're supposed to think different, but it happens, right? And so our attitude has to be different. It has to be focused more on the Christian attitude and the Christian way of life. So respecting the authorities and even the opponents. To play as one body with unmatched enthusiasm and energy, focusing on spirited, suffocating defense and passionate, precise offense. Like Paul was talking about, the details matter. You screw up or you didn't have a good outing at one end, guess what? It's coming up again at the other end. So you've got to forget about it, you've got to move on, and you've got to play in this, what it says, passionate and precise. To treasure every possession of every game, practice and individual workout, to lead by using our influence to encourage character, diligence, and excellence in everything. To glorify God in victory and defeat, and to play in such a way as to win an imperishable prize. Imperishable prize, everyone should be thinking 1 Corinthians 9:24-27, where Paul talks about this imperishable prize. He talks about the Isthmus Games, the games that were common to him in the first century, we think of the Olympian Games, right? I don't know if you know the rigors of what those people went through, all for a little crown of ivy leaves. Right, 9 months of dedication, being away from their family in the ancient world, right, going through all the rigors of getting out there and doing the exercises, and they had to stick with the diet, and they had no outside contact. They didn't even have cell phones that they could use in the first century. That was put outside the wall. And so what did they get? An imperishable prize, right? And what we're going after is something, or they're going for a perishable prize. We're going for an imperishable prize, and that is ultimately the blessings of the Lord. And so a little volunteer club talk, a little Wildcat way attitude. I'm trying to soften you up before we talk about how much it costs to play in this club. So if you see that and the numbers are there, we're going to try to pull all this up, but you have there on your sheets what it costs to play in this club. I'm going to be real open and honest with you. This is a 501c3 operation. We bring in about $50,000 or $60,000 a year through this club, through registration, through sponsorships, through different things. Guess what? You know what goes out of this club every year? $50,000 to $60,000, because it costs $50 an hour to play on one of these courts. For practice or game, it doesn't matter. It costs $270, nearly $300 to pay 3 refs at varsity level for one game. And so basketball, different than soccer and different from other sports, very, very expense intensive, right? So you pay for every hour that a kid gets on the court. And so all that money pretty much comes in. We white knuckle it, and hopefully we have a few dollars at the end of the season. So the numbers you see in front of you, if you're a varsity level player, that's daunting. You're like, you got to be kidding me. But if you know it's 3+ events a week, it's for 6 months, 40 games. Public school plays like 22, 23 games in a tournament, right? And so we're playing more games than they're playing, and we're having more events, more activities overall. But again, this is just what it costs when we are a homeschool club and we have to pay for everything. It'd be nice if somebody would just give us a few $1 million, give us a gym and all that kind of stuff, but then you have to maintain it. I wouldn't want this place if they said, it's yours. We couldn't keep the lights on. We couldn't keep, the utilities running. Imagine redoing the floors, redoing the parking lot, keep all this stuff up. It's impossible for a small organization. Now, if you look at that, I have 5 kids. One will graduate this year, and I've already graduated 2 through the club. So, that'll be 3 gone through all of that. And then I got 2 younger ones, a 12 and a nearly 8-year-old. And so when you have multiple kids at varsity level, it's expensive. It's a couple grand, right? And so I'm going to tell you this too. I've never paid a dime to play here. Why? Because I'm the president. I can do what I want. And I used to be the treasurer, and so I could fudge all the numbers. Here's how I do it. It is sponsorship. Well, how do you do that? Well, you be a professional salesperson like I was for 15 years, and then it's a breeze. I'm kidding. People don't like to hear that. I'm not comfortable doing anything like that, but I have raised in sponsorship every year the amount that I need for my kids to play in this club. It's not that difficult. It takes a little bit of discipline, and I'll tell you exactly how to do it. You can take some notes, and anyone can do it. And so this is how it's done. You think of the places that you fraternize on a regular basis, right? So my kids go to the dentist. They've got some ortho work done. I love Thai Spice. It's my favorite restaurant over here on County Line Road and has been for, last 7 or 8 years. I go to Auto Tire over here for all my late model cars. And so I frequent certain businesses that are mom and pop, local decision maker that know me. Now, know me is usually, that's a detriment usually. If they know me, then they don't want any part of me. But the reality is, if you present this club to someone that runs a business, they are willing to help out. Now, early on, what I would do is I'm like, oh, all right, I need a marketing plan. They need an ROI. They need to say if they're going to give me $400 or $500 and they need to have that much money come through the door, and they don't. They don't care. I did that once. It was this Stack Pickle joint over here, and they wanted to monitor it all the time. And every week, they have receipts and how many were Wildcat receipts, and did they ever cover their $400 or $500? It was a nightmare. I mean, they had more than enough, business that came in, but it was just too hard to track. And so what I've done is I have repeat business, because once you get them once, the next year you just go in, hey, yeah, sure. First year is the hardest. So if anybody wants to know how to do this, here's how to do it. I just gave you a list of maybe local businesses that where the decision maker is here, right? It's very difficult to come over here to Meyer and send it through the corporate office and, on and on it goes, and they may give you a $25 gift card at the end of it, right? That's not what you're looking for. And so to start out, if anybody's interested, make a list of businesses that you would be interested in doing this with, and I would say do 20 businesses. You can come up with 20 businesses, and then you just start hitting them like clockwork. Say, this week I'll hit 5, this week I'll hit 5, this week I'll hit 5, and you want a yes or no answer. And what you're going to do, and this is exactly what I do, is I take in this program, and I say, I'm Mark, I'm with the Wildcats, or whatever, you describe it. I describe it as we're the largest homeschool basketball club in the state of Indiana. Right? And I go through all these details, and all the things that I know about the club. And then I say, what we're looking for is you to help sponsor us. And with all the streaming, they get a ton of impressions, right? We talk every game. We go through through every game, we go through every sponsor that we have. So people, how many games do you think we actually stream then? $480 a year. 150 a year, and we go through the hits of the sponsors, through halftime and other times. So they get a lot of impressions, plus what they get in the program, depending on the level that they pay, then they get, maybe a full page ad or whatever it is, right? And so once you get them to do it once, like I say, it's real easy to do it on repeat business. You go back next year, hey, this is what we did. The season went well. We're going to do this again. Love to have your support. I mean, I've got people that have done it how long, Shelley? 5, 6, 7 years, right? And so sponsors, try to keep up. Yeah. And so it gets easier and easier. I don't have a list of 20 anymore, right? I have a list of who did the last 6 or 7 last year, right? I just go to them again, and they usually all say yes, and it's very easy. And then what they do is they write a check to the club. It's a 501c3, and then also we just get their ad copy, and then we put it through this program. And so that is the easiest way. And here's what happens with that. So I've raised $500 through a sponsorship. I get $250 toward my registration. $250 goes toward the club. If everybody sponsored away the registration, the club would get double the amount of registration money. You wouldn't pay a dime, but yet the club would be on such good financial footing, right? It is one of the easiest things to do. And people say, well, I don't know if I can do that, but you want to spin your wheels and do all the kinds of things that may, raise $20 or something, please try to do it. And if you're like, I love this club, it all sounds great, but the fees look too high, talk to me. You can call me. I'll give you advice on all that anytime. What else do I need to hit on? Amazon, we have an Amazon Smile account, right? So if you do Amazon, which everybody does, everybody heard of Amazon? Yeah, good. And so what you can do is get on the Wildcat Amazon Smile account, and a certain percent of your purchases will go back to the club. And the other one is Kroger. We have a Kroger account as well. If anybody goes to Kroger on a regular basis, if you sign up through the Wildcat program, then again, a percentage of what you buy there comes back to the club. And that one's pretty decent. We get maybe $150, $200 a quarter on that or something, So any little bit helps. Like I said, this is an all volunteer organization. No one within the club gets paid. All of our money comes in, and all the money goes out to people outside the club, like refs and, people that own these buildings and tournaments and that type of stuff. And so that's another thing to tell someone that is looking to sponsor us. Say, it's an all-volunteer club, and we're just trying to provide high-level basketball for these student athletes that are outside the traditional school environment and school setting. Now, looking through this, anybody else have any questions on these fees outside of why? So you can see what we do to try not to just have you pay it all up front. We do it in installments. So I don't know if that makes sense, right? So $100 due upon registration. And then there's going to be some other times where you pay some remaining over time. But yeah, so what we normally do, so there's an example, right? Varsity boys, 805, paid 100, registration, 705, 3 months. So here's what we normally do is, let's say you're playing a 10U and 12U. And correct me if I'm wrong if we've changed any of this. We normally say you pay the higher level, right? So we don't say, oh, you pay a little of this one, you pay a little of that one. So you're playing 10U, 12U, you just pay the higher one, which is 12U. Make sense? Pretty straightforward. So, if you're on varsity, obviously that's the highest level. But, if you're playing down to JV as well, you're just playing varsity. Now, what happens at the varsity level, if you're not familiar with this, at the varsity level, we go to a national tournament. The national tournament is in beautiful Springfield, Missouri. So that's where I've had to, spring break for the last however many years. I'm looking forward to getting out of that, or if they move it somewhere. So what happens is going to that is a big commitment at the varsity level. It's an entire week of basketball. You're getting there Sunday night, and you will stay possibly till Saturday morning, unless sometimes you can leave Friday night, depending on when all your games are. That's at the varsity level. And so what we do is part of these varsity fees help the coaches get out there as well. These coaches dedicate their time all season and all the hours and everything that they do. And so some of your fees at the varsity level will go to help get the coaches out there and pay for some of their, hotel and that type of stuff. And so it is a fantastic tournament. People that go are like, I don't know, that sounds like a lot. And then you go and you're like, my kids are like, oh, this is the best vacation spot we've ever been to. I'm like, what's wrong with you? And then you remember try to, get them to remember all the wonderful vacations you took them on. Then it just pales in comparison because they're with their friends. It's nonstop basketball. It's, social time. It's weird how much people like it, myself included. My mom and I then go out there and, we'll have maybe two teams. We'll watch the boys, we'll watch the girls. I've had girls last couple of years. And then we'll go watch every other team that we know about. And you can watch basketball from 8 a.m. to about 10 p.m., 5 straight days. And that's usually what I do. But so those fees are kind of rolled into those higher level varsity as well. But if you ever have a question, well, why is this much? Like I said, it is an open book. In my mind, I'll tell you, probably way too much, but that's the way it is. That's all I had. Sure, come on up. You look better with this.
It is my. All right, I'm Shelly Dove, and this is my first year on the board, but our 7th year with the club. And I think for all but the first year, I've done a lot of stuff for the club. So I am known as the program lady and the live stream lady to all the kids, I think. So these are our programs. This is last year's program, and this is the program from the year before. This is a 40, last year was 44 pages, I think, if I remember correctly. We have a section for every team in this. And then mixed in between it, and the reason I'm talking about it is because when you get sponsorships, sponsors do want to know how you're going to represent them. So that's what I'm going to tell you about, is what you tell them about how you're going to represent them if you go to get sponsorships. So we have ads in our program. These are half-page ads. And then we have full-page ads that they get, like the more expensive ones. Usually we'll get the back. Last year, our sponsors, we didn't get anyone that paid enough for the whole full page. So they shared the back. So the way this works is I'm the person that you have to get the images to, or that the sponsor needs to talk to if they need an image designed. And so I try not to do the designing, but for a small business who, like I said, Mark, I don't know if you heard me answer his question, but Mark is in his 7th year probably with 3 different businesses. So when they've repeated for us, and I'm going to probably design them an ad that goes more with the way our program looks, so that we represent them well, especially when they're being loyal to us like that. We want to be loyal to them as well. The other vehicle for sponsors is, and Mark mentioned this, is live streaming. We do live stream, and I say about 150 games. It might be 146 one year, 152 another year. It's roughly about 150 games a year from 10U all the way up to varsity. There's an occasional location that just has no signal. State tournament a couple of years ago, we were in Amish country for a game, and it didn't matter how many chunks of my hair I pulled out, I just could not get a signal. So we may occasionally miss a game, but the commitment is that every sponsor who sponsors at the 500 or more level is going to get mentioned at least once on every single game. And if you're a sponsor who's giving $1,000 or more, we're going to say your name at the beginning of every broadcast, and then we're going to say your name again at halftime, and then we're going to thank you again at the end of every broadcast. So you're getting a lot more exposure at 1,000 or more. And then we rotate anything below $500, they get mentioned intermittently. So we rotate that through occasionally if we're like we have a couple ministries that will advertise with us, and they'll be lower than that, but we are a Christian organization, so if a ministry runs with us, we're going to put them on the list too, like we did last year. So the other opportunities that we have are, we can negotiate with our sponsors. So if we have a sponsor who wants to give us $2,500, but they don't necessarily like all the options that we have on there, or maybe they want to trade something out, and we can negotiate with that, but you need to talk to myself or Mark or Paul, because if they want the varsity team to wear something, he's going to have to approve it. So, we can negotiate, but we want to get that done by October 10th. So October 10th is the deadline for guaranteed good placements. We're not going to determine the final page count on our program until October 10th. Once I've determined the final page count and I've started laying out every page, then whatever space I have left is going to get filled in. And October 20th is the last day that I will receive any images for our program. Oh yeah, and the other thing is we do put this online. So not only are they getting this printed book, which we don't actually print that many copies of, it's about 130 copies max, because it's mostly for the families, but we do put this on our website. We share it on all of our social media, and every single advertisement is linked to whatever the business wants it to be linked to. So if they want it linked to their Facebook profile, that's where we'll link it, or their Google profile, their business, Google business profile, or their website, or we've had whatever the company wants, that's the link they'll get, but they get one link per ad. Full page ad, we can actually give a few more links too, because there's space for that, but at least one link per ad. Any questions about the process? My email, we were going to send out an email with like how to contact me, links to the form that they need to fill out with the information I need. I need contact information for every sponsor, because I am a degree journalist and I have this thing called journalistic integrity, which I know most media doesn't have anymore, but I do. So I want to know that I'm doing the right thing for them. I want to know that I am spelling everything correctly, that I have the right information that they want on there, and I want to be able to check with them. So I need at least one contact person, email, phone, whatever. I can work with whatever. I just need a contact point, a name, and if they have imaging, they may not know the exact sizing or whatever, but we do have it. It's on. Oh yes, and they can actually register on our website. So if you go to the main page, homeschoolwildcats.com, sponsor us is right there in a blue, and it'll take you to the page Jenny's got going right there. And if you're at home, I'm sorry you can't see that, but yeah, go to homeschoolwildcats.com, click sponsor us. It'll come up. They can fill all their information on there. They can submit the image through there now, right? Yes. So they can submit the image through there. I think the image dimensions, are they in there? Okay, so they're in there now. And we do have a separate sheet for that too that I can email you. We also have this, which on the front is just really easy to look at. And then if they're interested in a specific price, they can go to the back. So if you need copies of this, do we have extras here today, Jenny? Oh, yeah, so you have this already. Yeah, so this is a great thing to take with you when you go talk to a potential sponsor. You can also, I'm going to put it back online, last year's, for you under parent information, so that you can pull it up on your phone or your tablet or whatever if you would rather do it digitally, so you can show them that everything is linked, okay? Any questions about sponsorship? Yeah. Okay. You send an email to me. That's what I said. When we email you, we'll tell you all the things you need to do. Like, it'll be in writing, but you'll send me an email and the treasurer an email. It also comes to us. Does it say the person? Okay. It wasn't on there originally. Okay. If they don't note it, we will probably send out an email saying, hey, we have a sponsor from, this is the sponsor who got, because they could forget to fill it in, or there could be an error, Yes, the treasurer usually, or Mark, yeah. So he was, yeah. Yeah, so the question, one second, I have to repeat it for them. So the question that he asked was, what do you do if they give you a check? And Jenny, did you already email that document out? The one that you just showed him that had the information on the back? Yeah, could you email that out? Jenny Walker is going to email that out if you did not come in person. So along probably with this. Okay, so she will email both of those out. Okay, so the other question. Okay, so Mark, can you?
We're not above that. If you're like, I raised $2,500, but I only need $800 or whatever to go to that. We can push that forward. And just kind of keep you a running total, right? So I've never had to do it. Just to be real honest, so I'll lay the incentive out there, but no one. I have yet to find the person that really does what I do, where they even raise all the money that they need to completely cover their kid and some. But yeah, we'll just run that forward and run a total, because I'd like to incentivize people to do it, right? But maybe they'll get $400, $500 ad, 250 goes, but they owe $500 or $800, so at least pays a portion of it. But yeah, so if you raise $2,500 and only 800 goes this year, or you raise 5,000, 25 goes to you, you knock off 8. Sure, like the club. I said sure, like the club. Said he'd like to give it away too.
Again, it's $5,000. I got 2,500 goes my way. Not my way, but towards my account, and I use that for someone else.
Yeah, we'll discuss it. So yeah, we can get creative.
Yeah, I've had situations where we've had families who've had hardship.
Yeah.
And that could be situations where it could be helpful for somebody.
Yeah, so usually all of that's kind of between you and the treasurer, right? In other words, hey, this is what happened, on and on. And then usually, like she says, we'll have other avenues where people have real hardships and they can't really even afford the club. And so, we can all get together and talk if there is a pool of money like that.
Just for clarity's sake, that last question, just in case you're just wondering, was if you have sponsored, say, $5,000 or something like that, and you only need to cover one child and you have extra, could you push that over to somebody else who's not able to pay their fees? And that's what Mark was talking about. All right, trying to think. The other thing about the program is, if you have not looked through one, there are a lot of just absolutely gorgeous pictures taken by some parents who are in the club. And every team section starts with like this action shot page. So if you were in last year and you have pictures that you have not yet shared with me, please do so. My email will be, when we send out that email, my email will be in there. I don't really want to put it on YouTube. But yeah, so then we also have a senior section. So if you're a senior this year, I'm going to be contacting you about, some pictures. You're going to have to write kind of a senior dedication section, and then I'll ask you, like, how many years have you been with Wildcats? What's your favorite Bible verse? Plans after high school? And then you'll write your senior will, which is like, this is my legacy. They make me cry every year. I'm already crying thinking about it. Like every single time I edit these, Caleb my son hands me a box of tissues. He's like, Mom, you want a cup of tea? Like, I know you're going to do the senior thing tonight. So, and I will just say that, I love that this program allows the kids to have something tangible from their time. So, whatever you can do to help make it a really great thing for them. I had a kid that graduated 3 years ago come up to me last season and say, I started dating this girl. And she was like, well, what do you got from she wasn't homeschooled. She went to public school. She was like, well, don't you have like yearbooks or something? And he's like, no, wait. I have the Wildcat program. So I guess when he was on his like third date and she wanted to see something, that's what he pulled out. So I mean, I think it has a little bit of longevity. That's why we laminate the covers. Laminated, yeah. But anyway, and we are looking for a sponsor to help cover the cost of printing the program. We are not. Okay, we may not be, but if you have ideas on that, I'd still want to hear them. So he say yes. Oh, well, I guess not. I guess we got a yes, and I wasn't informed. So, okay, it just happened. All right, I think I'm done.
Q&A portion. Any questions? You again. Keep coming. I love it. Keep doing it. Who do you guys play with? Okay. Yeah. We're Southside Thunder. I just came from there, so I'm a varsity girls coach, Southside Thunder.
So, I was just asking her, I know the first round, but we do this on the other side. Is there parent players that contact them online for the registration process? So we do that in our website. So we guys do that.
Yeah, so we have part of registration. So like you said, he didn't do it. Yeah.
Go on the online registration, it'll have like, you have to check to agree, I agree. So there's something on there.
And we have documents. Yeah. You're living up to it. Wonderful. What level do you guys have? Okay. Yeah. Well, so what happens usually is, the national tournament in soccer is, last week, usually of October, something, right? October 23rd or whatever. Yeah. And so we start practicing at the beginning of October. So there's a little bit of overlap, but there's usually not game overlap, right? Games usually start in November, although varsity girls always start somewhere at the end of October, and sometimes there's overlap. But yeah, so we try to have that month of overlap usually happens between practice and basketball and games in soccer, then soccer ends, and then usually games start early November. Basketball. 4. Yeah, because I have kids that do homeschool soccer at Southside Thunder, and then I come here and I'm a part of this cult for 6 months. So yeah, I mean, here's my attitude. I'm committed to what I'm in at that time, right? We're going to finish out soccer. We're going to do everything that we've committed to do. My kids are always torn. What's your favorite, sport? Whatever you're in. That's what they're, soccer till basketball starts, right? And then halfway through that, So we commit to what we're in, and we still, if we can go to basketball practice in October, we try to do that because usually it's on, odd nights or whatever, but we're going to go to soccer until that's finished, and then we'll, go over to basketball. Girls varsity coach wasn't too happy about that for a while because he didn't have girls that played soccer, but, 4 or 5 of them did, so like, sorry, Scott, this is the culture, everybody, but all those soccer girls that show up, they're already in shape. Right? If it's girls only and they're basketball only, maybe they haven't done anything till, March, and here it is October. So they show up, and they're scrappy and they're in shape, and, it is what it is. So we're homeschoolers, so we appreciate just you giving your kids, exposure to all kinds of different sports and all that type of stuff. So.
We don't have a code contest on the registration here.
Yeah, so you can do whatever you want. Within Yeah.
It's the Wildcat.
Yeah, the Wildcat way is kind of the parameter on everything. Over the years, like I said, if we've seen some things, we will put in some things in writing if we have to go that far, as here are the guardrails, no cussing, abusive language, punching fans, at least in the stands, do it out in the parking lot, we try to,
Hopefully without a Wildcat shirt.
Right. Turn your Wildcat stuff inside out, Yeah. Put on buy some public school thing there at the concession stand. Put that on before you go crazy in the stands. It looks like you're from Warren Central or whatever. Good questions. Anyone else? So usually the tryouts would be before November, right? I mean, is it gonna? Yeah, first 2 weeks of October tryouts for. And we say tryouts, it's usually for the upper levels, you know. So here's what happens. So JV is in homeschool games 16U, but when it's JV at a public school game, it's 18 and under. Makes sense? So you could be 18 and a senior at your favorite public school, plug that name in, and you could be on the JV team, right? And so what we do is so like when Paul explained, we play public schools, we play private parochial, and homeschool. Usually private parochial is also IHSAA, right? So if it's public or private, it's pretty much the same guidelines. We play by all of their rules, right? Whatever their age limits are, their age requirements, we play by those rules when we play them. When it comes to homeschool, then it's 16U is our JV, age, and then, 14U and anything else, So, and our cutoff is September 1st. So what your student athlete is on September 1st, they can play that age all year. So if the next day they turn 15, they can still play 14U all season. So what we do talent-wise, we try to get them up as high as they can play at their talent level because that pushes them, that gets them, I just say better equipped to play at the varsity level. But yeah, so that's the cutoff. So it's actually interesting because we had a varsity girl that aged out of homeschool basketball, right? She's 19 on September 1st. As long as you're under 20 at public school before the state tournament starts, you can still play, right? And so she thought about joining maybe a evil public school for 1 year. But I mean, she was homeschooled her whole life, so yeah. Yeah, like if you do 19U, so yes, but this is 18U, but September 1st. So technically, September 2nd, you're 19, you can play all. Yeah, so in homeschool, there's no rule. You just kind of come to your own, between coaches. You had 14U kids go out to national tournament, play at 14U, 16U, and 18U because they're absolute, stars at 14U and they'll play across three. We usually don't like people playing across three levels within the club. Two is usually the limit. And very rare occasions we've had them play across, three levels. Yeah. We're not like other teams, Shell. Yes. Well, so it's kind of talent based, right? So she can play 12U. That's what you would sign her up for through registration, and then once they kind of assess where everyone is, we would come to you, the parent, and say, hey, she's talented enough to play 14U. Would you like her to play up? Because that's a financial commitment for you to go to 12U to 14U, right? The difference because you'd pay higher, but kind of depending on what the teams need, you could play both as well. But again, sometimes parents are like, I don't want to play both. I'm going to go 2 schedules, 2 games, everything. So I just rather play up, or sometimes they want to play down. But we'll tell you, at least from our assessment of your child's talent and what the team needs are, we'll suggest this is where we would like her. Yeah. Varsity girls, that's what we need this year. I would say no if I were you, but. can't believe you did that to me. That is a good testament, right? So they come all the way from Kokomo. We've had, other families that are stepping maybe over other clubs to get to this club. And so I don't know if you'd like to share that.
Started looking into the Wildcat Club. And our son Mike last year, and it was just a fantastic experience. I liked the Christianity aspect of the club, the intentional part of it. A lot of clubs will tag the Christianity to it, but are not intentional about it. And for our son last year, Micah, it was incredible. It was an incredible experience for him. Beneficial spiritually, beneficial for him basketball wise, relationship wise. So I can't really say enough good about the Wildcat program. Was that good enough? I'll hold that. I'll replay out here.
Your kid's registration is paid. Yeah. What did you owe? Just wipe that off. No, but I appreciate that, bringing up a testimony of people come from, quite a distance, and the commitment to get here and, the several nights a week and everything else. So I complain. I live 5 minutes from here, so good positive mental attitude. Anyone else? Questions? Yes. What age and gender are you looking at? How old? Really need varsity girls. So here's the typical was Tuesday, Friday, Saturday were the nights that we would do. But it just depends on what level and, what. So when we came here and we had 3 courts under one roof, we could pretty much do that. Everybody could run, all 9 teams could run through practice here on a Tuesday, on a Friday, on a Saturday. Now we're spread out a little bit around the city. And so typically girls this year, I think, are going to be Tuesday. I think they might still stick to Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. Could be Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, So what we try to do, so I schedule all the girls' games as well at all levels. So what I try to do is make the games on those nights as well. So Tuesday, Friday, Saturday. So we keep it at 3 events. So, all right, we normally practice on Tuesday. We got a game on Tuesday, right? So it keeps it to, close to 3 events. Doesn't always work that way, but. Yeah. But then the boys, they're going to practice at a different facility, and it may go different nights. So I hate to say it, it's hard to answer that. It was so much easier when we were at one facility, but it just depends on what level. Yeah, so it was nice being here, but this is the Taj Mahal of the South Side, and so you pay for it. And so by force, we were, what happened is the high school moved into here, right? Greenwood Christian Academy now, this is their high school. And so they still lease it off of the church, but they have obviously first dibs on this place. Now, by force, we've been pushed to other places, and we have found there are some great places, they're more economical, maybe not in the exact location we'd like, but the Lord has shown us, some new relationships and some new facilities that are probably more beneficial for us long term, right? Where we're creating relationships where the places are becoming our own space, right? And so that's been exciting, but yeah, 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 yeah. And the more we can cut on the outgoing, just makes it easier for the entire club. All right, any other questions? As you can tell, I will ramble. No? And if you have a question about sponsorships, I brought some, sample previous season game programs as well. So if you need some of that, yeah, please do, because that's what you want to do when you go into facilities. Because that's what you want to do when you go into a business. You want to show them that. You want to show them tangibly what they're going to get. My cell phone number is on there as well. So you call me anytime, night or day, if you're about to go into a business. I don't know what to say. Who are we again? I'll give you a pep talk right before you go in. All right, that's all I have. If no one has anything else, I'll close us out in prayer. And we probably need to at least get out of this room. I don't know if this gal here is trying to lock up the door, but if you want to talk even more, we can talk out in the lobby or out in the parking lot or whatever. If you have any more questions, let's close it out in prayer here. Father, thanks for this time together and the opportunity for us to talk about Wildcat business and to be able to think and ponder this club and how we organize and how we communicate, and also how we're going to provide something and of an experience for these student athletes and also these parents. And so I pray that you bless us this coming season, and also that everything we do is a glory unto you. We pray all this in Christ's name. Amen.